Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on a Tuesday night here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your lovely evening here. We're live on all platforms known to man. We are on Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social medias, all known to man, where you can like, follow, and subscribe and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past shows. We've got a special one cooking up for you. My good friend, who I love bringing up onto the show, Doug Brooks, covers everything Dallas Cowboys, is going to be joining us here in just about half an hour. And of course, before we bring him on, part 2 of the NFL mock draft. That's right, folks. We got part 2 of this, and then we've got one more getting closer into draft week. So I'm really excited about that. I felt like part 1 started off really, really good, started off red hot, and then now we're going to have part 2. And this one, if you thought the first one had a lot more moves, this one is going to have a ton, so stay tuned up on it. All right, folks. Well, first and foremost, so the college basketball season has now come to a wrap. Congratulations to both South Carolina, as we mentioned, the South Carolina women's that we talked about yesterday, and congratulations to UConn's men's basketball for now being back-to-back champions. Dan Hurley, as we've known for a very, very long time, Dan Hurley is a damn good coach. And much like you see other college coaches here in the country, Dan Hurley didn't have an answer for Zach Edey, but at the same time, he's produced arguably one of the best programs currently in the college basketball world. I know Purdue made it thus far into the national title game, but in the same time, I mean, Dan Hurley and his strong coaching schematic was what really made the difference, not to mention a couple of players who really did step up in big situations and in big spots, and that is where UConn now has become back-to-back champions for the first time since UCLA had last done it. And for Dan Hurley, because when you look around college basketball as of right now, men's was not as popular this year. The women's basketball title literally had over 17.8 million views all throughout it for South Carolina and for Iowa, and most of that is because of Caitlin Clark. But at the same time, you look at all of the college basketball on the men's program side of things, you look at a lot of the head coaches, okay? North Carolina and Duke will have a great future. so will UConn. But you also heard the news not too long ago that Kentucky's head coach, John Calipari, is leaving the program and he's headed to Arkansas. And part of the reason of this is this one and done deal never lasts. It does not work. You can't build around your whole starting five around unproven freshmen. It just doesn't work like that. So in the end, Dan Hurley's smart enough that he's going to, at the very least, have 2 to 3 seniors, have at least a couple juniors, and then in the end, you're kind of building up a lot of these freshmen into sophomore years and sophomores into juniors. So Dan Hurley was doing this whole system right. And UConn in the last couple of years for their men's basketball program, they had gotten good, but they never had gotten over the top. And then once Dan Hurley really started to kind of get better, I mean, he took out a lot of great coaches. He took out Mark Few. He took out, the coaches all around. Even when you look at North Carolina and Duke, who have moved off from Coach K and Roy Williams. Both of those programs will be fine. I was very impressed with Duke. And I knew what I was getting with North Carolina because all around in their starting five and all around their roster, they were really, really good. So there's going to be bright futures ahead of it for men's college basketball. This is not the only season to basically putting your head in the sand. It's not. I think arguably college basketball will get better again for the men's side. This year was just so happened to have been unfortunate. And you know what? You're going to end up now having Mark Few at Gonzaga really having to work at least his whole roster. And then at the same time, Dan Hurley's not going anywhere. Duke and North Carolina have bright futures. And then what is it going to mean now for Kentucky? I remember hearing a reporter, and I watched one of the skits where the reporter asked Dan Hurley if whether or not he would stay at Connecticut. Maybe he'd take a job at Kentucky. And all he did was laugh. Because why would you leave in a national title where you just went back-to-back and you have a great, strong program in the Northeast in Connecticut to just go and take a job at Kentucky that John Calipari now has left unoccupied? Like, why? In Kentucky's program, there's unproven freshmen. You're going to have to rework the entirety of this whole thing by going through the NIL and the transfer portal. That's just basically what Kentucky will have to do. They do have a couple real good players I like. I actually had just seen that there was a star player from Indiana State who has entered the transfer portal. I would maybe inquire about getting him if you're getting the right coach in the building. But there's going to be nothing that's going to compare to Dan Hurley. Not even close. Nothing is going to compare to the strong program in the Northeast countries. Okay, the Northeast states. Their programs, they bring their all the way from just the tip end right there from Connecticut, and then all the way as it kind of comes down to North Carolina and to Dukes and to, potentially if they get the right coach, Kentucky will end up coming back up. But like I said, Mark Few's not going anywhere, and ultimately he wants to win a national title with Gonzaga. And honestly, I'm all for it. But if Gonzaga can't end up winning the national title, then you're going to have to think of something else. But you're going to have to end up changing a little bit more of some of this stuff. But, Dan Hurley, great coach. He ain't going nowhere. And he's ultimately going to be the reason why that Connecticut remains a strong program. They're going to remain as a very, very strong program for a very long time. And that's just the way that it works. So, again, you have a problem with it, you got to be a better program. All right, so as we're getting ready for, part 2 of this mock draft, so the one thing that I've noticed of earlier, so the Arizona Cardinals, they have an interesting pick, and they have the number 4 pick in the draft. Now, the sources that is basically I've been told have said that the Arizona Cardinals, they have had inquiring talks about potentially getting the number 4 overall pick. What is it going to take to basically get it? Well, the price tag that Arizona has now put out is that they want 3 first-round picks. Not 1, not 2, but 3 first-round picks for the number 4. Are you out of your gourd? You think anybody's going to honestly end up taking that for as high-priced as that is? There is not a chance in hell that they are honestly going to end up making that move. So, what does that now mean for Arizona? What that means is they basically have put a road blockage on teams that could potentially end up going for the number 4 pick because the quarterback talks have been heating up, but they also know that you've got arguably one of the best stars, if not 3 of those, between Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. Those are the ones that you basically have. So, in the end, I think it's quite clear. You're going to honestly end up keeping the number 4 pick and going and getting Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, there's no reason to basically move out of the spot and take somebody else, especially if you've got arguably one of the best receivers in their class. So that's what you do. And you know what? That's fine. Because I would much rather just take the pick than other teams risk it, because you already have Minnesota giving you the picks 11 and 23. So Arizona, and even in the first mock draft, I had them taking the 11 and 23, and then they'd already have another pick in the first round. They got pick 27. They traded that one away. So I think this whole pitch by Arizona is more of a road blockage. That's what they're treating this. They're treating this like a road blockage. They're not going to treat this any other way. And I don't blame them. I think in the end, you got to go with your strong gut. And if your strong gut is, we're just going to put a high price so people back off, and we are going to take the best receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I've said it before. They need a receiver, and they need an O-line, because you're not going to be throwing to your star receiver if you ain't got an O-line. So, and Kyler Murray needs time to throw in the pocket, because if he's constantly running for his life up out there, it's not going to look good. It's not going to be a good look at all for Arizona moving forward, knowing that you're going to have LA, who, yes, they lost. They've lost Aaron Donald, and then eventually they're going to go and draft their next successor, whether he's a defensive tackle or he's an edge. Or you've got Seattle, who they've got a defensive coach, defensive culture, and you've also got the 49ers with a new defensive coordinator and a defensive culture. And yet you've got Kyle Shanahan. So they're smart enough to where the NL West or the NFC West, it's going to be very competitive. So you need to protect Kyler Murray at all costs. And I understand Kyler Murray needs to live up to his expectations. He does not need to be distracted. He does not need to end up having all of this, foolishness happening all around. You get a number 1 receiver. You'll get an O-line. Hopefully that, because you've already got a tight end in Trey McBride, who I really, really like late in the year. And I thought he was great. But I think this is what it is. I think Arizona's trying to roadblock this by asking for 3 first-rounders, whether you get 2 first-round picks for this draft in Minnesota, and maybe you go and get a first-rounder either next year or the year after. Maybe that's what they're asking for. But I think Minnesota would be the only suitor for that. But in the end, like I did in the first mock draft, I don't think it's that crazy. I don't even think that it's not possible. It is. The NFL draft is going to be filled with multiple moves, multiple trades, and you're going to see people just moving everywhere. And I think the whole purpose of this is because you look at Kansas City, who's not panicking. They've got a really good defense. They did not have a star wide receiver. And I think in the end, it's quite clear. There's going to be lots of movements everywhere. But I think in the end, you just have to go with your gut. And I think Arizona blocking this pick and getting Marvin Harrison Jr., and as I think is what they're pitching, that pick is not for sale unless you're Minnesota and you've got those two picks from 11 and 23 that you could take, and that's it. That's all that I think is probably the only team that can afford it. And it's not anything that's nuts or crazy, but I just think that's exactly with what they're looking for. So I don't think it's crazy at all. I think in the end, I think Arizona understands the product that they have. I think they understand that it's not something that's cheap. I think it's ultimately how you perceive it. So I think the Cardinals, they probably are doing the smart thing because they are going to need, they are going to need to reload this. So I don't blame them. I do not blame them one bit. Good stuff. Doug Brooks coming up around the corner. Really excited to bring him along. And we're going to be having some explanations about the Cowboys. And I love exactly everything that he puts out as far as content goes for the Cowboys. So we're going to be having him on. And then afterwards here, after this break, we got round 2 of the mock drafts. That's right, part 2, because the third one is going to be coming up soon, but it'll be coming closer by draft night. So I'm excited about this one. All right, folks. Well, as I've said, BetUS has been arguably the best sports book in over 30 years. Golfing tournaments, and especially with the Masters coming up, you're going to want to swing your way in to BetUS.com and get your bets in. I'm going to be planning on doing daily snake bite picks on BetUS. You're going to be seeing those as well. One of my best predictions of a couple of really good bets for those of you who are looking to bet on any sport. Major League Baseball is underway. We got the playoffs for both basketball and hockey that's going to be underway, and we've also got the Masters that's also coming up on our way as well. So get yourselves geared up for that, and don't lose out on arguably the best sports book in 30 years with BetUS.com, with over hundreds of different bet lines to choose from prop bets, single bets, parlay leg bets, you name it. And also casino entertainment for those of you who are just looking for a little fun in casino play. That's BetUS.com. Link is in the description. BetUS, where the game begins.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sportsway Network.
If I want it, gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving.
Don't lose your seat, folks, today when you end up booking your next event, whether it's your next sporting event or it's your live concert with your favorite artist getting you closer in the action or whatever show you may be into. SeatGeek has you covered to getting the best seats at the most affordable price when you go online or download on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. Use promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your first purchase of your ticket just by using the promo code at SeatGeek.com. Don't lose your seat with SeatGeek. All right, folks. Well, I have been waiting to do part 2 of the NFL mock draft. For those of you, I apologize for my listeners, but for my my broadcast audiences out there, tune in. It's up on Roku. It is up here on YouTube and IG Live and also on X. You guys do not want to end up missing up on the picks. All right, here we go. We've got our part 2 mock draft on our way and commence. Right, so as you guys already know, the pick, obviously, that's not changing is Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. And as I've said before, you would have told me at least 3 months ago this would not have been an ideal fit. But now with you've got offensive pieces, you're building up an offensive line. I like 2 of 3 of their offensive linemen. I think they could probably get a couple more here later on into the draft. But I do like this pick for Chicago. I'm going Caleb Williams at 1. Number 2, because I've been hearing an awful lot about this with the Washington Commanders. I'm going to flip-flop this one, and I'm going to take Drake May to the Commanders because many people are basically saying he's big, he's strong, he's a Justin Herbert-esque type of quarterback that if you have a terrible O-line like Washington, you could take the hits, you could take a lot of this stuff, and not to mention you've got weapons and an offense outside of tight end. Between Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, Terry McLaurin, and Jahan Dotson, I think if you go and get a tight end either in the 2nd or 3rd round, this team could definitely look good on offense. I'll take Drake May at 2. 3 overall pick. This is where Jaden Daniels will end up going to the New England Patriots. Now, it's an interesting fit, but I think if Jerod Mayo is in fact the coach that many people are saying, not as defensive like Belichick, but maybe somebody who basically can work with a lot of strengths with their offensive pieces. Jaden Daniels, as you know, very elusive. New England, they have a good, not a great offensive line, but he can be elusive, he can move out of the pocket, and he can escape out of danger. I'll take him at 3. Pick, and because the Arizona Cardinals ended up selling the block with their number 4 pick, they go ahead and they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. because in the end, you need to give Kyler Murray a weapon after he lost Rondale Moore, he lost DeAndre Hopkins, he lost a lot of receivers. But I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the clear pick because you're not going to settle for anybody that's less than that. In the first mock draft, I had them trading that pick because they wanted about 3 first-round picks. You were already going to get the 11th and the 23rd, and then you have the 27th. So you got plenty of first-round picks. I think this is kind of a sell to block the number 4 pick so that they could get Marvin Harrison Jr. without question, and that's where I think the Cardinals go. Things get interesting, and so the LA Chargers end up trading away the number 5 pick to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Vikings will take J.J. McCarthy at 5. And the reason of this is not a big-time reach. This is not something that I think, a lot of people are going to be kind of used to, but I think J.J. McCarthy at 5 kind of feels a little bit more safer and much more sure. Not to mention, too, the cost of the contract kind of goes down. You have to think about that as well. It might be about a couple million that goes down. But at the same time, Minnesota is still going to stick with their successor, and they'll take J.J. McCarthy. Are not shying away from this pick at all. I still have them taking Malik Neighbors. I do think that, again, they need a playmaker at wide receiver. I don't like the fact that you've got Daniel Jones as your quarterback, even though Marcus Spears ended up basically saying that Malik read the quarterback room and knows exactly what he is expecting. So I'm going to take Malik Neighbors with the Giants at number 6. But eventually the Giants, they're going to have to figure out quarterback. I think he realizes that, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. 7 pick is obvious, and I'm going with Joe Alt. I think at the same time, they need an offensive lineman. Joe Alt is definitely the answer for their offensive line and for their tackle position, because Brian Callahan, being the offensive coordinating coach, he needs to make Will Levis work and end up. They need to end up getting better, and they need him to get cooking, and they need him to get going. And I think that's exactly what the Titans are willing to do. I still got Joe Alt there at 7. Interesting one. I apologize for many people because of just kind of some technical difficulties. But however, the Atlanta Falcons, I mentioned in the first mock draft they would take Jared Verse. I'm going to flip that over, and I think that the Falcons will take Dallas Turner. It's an interesting one, but they're still going to take an edge rusher. I think at the same time, the Falcons already got their quarterback. They've already got an offense, and I think at the very least, Dallas Turner, much like Jared Verse, you're still going to, at the very least, get an edge rusher, and I think you're still going to end up getting that kind of pick with that kind of talent, and I think Dallas Turner, he'll still be that pick. Trade alert with the Chicago Bears, and now this time the Chargers end up trading from the 11th to the 9th to the Chicago Bears because the Bears are playing patient pick. This time, I think the Chargers at number 9, they take Brock Bowers because the Jets, they are trying to prevent them from taking a great college prospect in Brock Bowers. Now, I've been talking about this for several times before Keenan Allen got traded. You know what you're going to get with Brock Bowers being arguably one of the greatest college prospects in the country. The fact that his body build, his explosiveness, and his abilities to get more yards after the catch. But he also does give you really good, excellent blocks. He gives you excellent, bubble route and screen types of routes to get you open, even in midfield. I think the Chargers could be willing to work with that, and I think Brock Bowers is exactly the pick that I think you move up with, and thank God the Chicago Bears were there up at the 9th pick. Here's an interesting pick with the Jets, because if you don't end up getting Brock Bowers, then the very least that you can do is get another receiver. I see them taking Rome Odunze, because at the same time, yeah, you got Garrett Wilson. Yeah, you got Mike Williams. But sometimes you're going to need to get an extra receiver for insurance purposes. And I think Rome Odunze is perfectly that kind of guy. I love his work ethic. I don't think he kind of runs beautiful routes, but he runs them good enough to where he can make contested catches. He's willing to get better. And I think at the same time, the Jets, they are definitely going to be pivoting up on the offensive end. I got the Jets taking Rome Odunze. Now, the Chicago Bears, as I've said, this is a flip-flop for them when it came to Dallas Turner. In the first one, I'm going to have the Chicago Bears taking Jared Verse because you are still going to have to get that secondary edge rusher next to Montez Sweat so that you could at the very least get 2 defensive edge rushers feasting and getting the defense to now play hard ball. You've already got Caleb Williams and you got him a decent offensive weaponry. So at this point, keep the defense consistent, and either it would be Dallas Turner or at this point, Jared Verse. Either one of them is going to succeed at this point. Famous I've stuck with out here in the Denver area where I live at, and they are still screaming out Bo Nix that I think could be taken by the Broncos. I think it's perfect for this point because for a small quarterback who is accurate, I think could also throw the deep ball at goodwill. Sean Payton is definitely going to shape up his skill set and make him a better yet more capable and more productive offensive quarterback. And so I think Bo Nix is definitely the pick, and he's definitely the right answer for someone like Sean Payton. Now, instead of taking the corner like the Raiders did, I see the Raiders in a trade situation, trade with the Cincinnati Bengals for that 13th pick. And the Raiders are kind of patient, but the Cincinnati Bengals, because they've lost some offensive line play, they go and they draft the Penn State offensive lineman Olu Fashanu. I think you definitely, because with Joe Burrow out for the entirety of the season last year, you need to fix up that offensive line, and you need to fix it quickly because, again, I know that they're kind of scared when it comes to offense with their pieces and depending on what happens with T. Higgins. But you need to start strengthening up that offensive line. Time is ticking. You got to be quicker than that. But Olu Fashanu, I love him as a tackle because of the body build, the strength, and more of just the consistent play that he had at Penn State with allowing Drew Aller to basically have a clean pocket. I like this pick for the Bengals to go for at 13. So the New Orleans Saints, they are not shying away at offensive line, but I do think they take Talise Fuaga over at Oregon State because they're going to need to refresh that offensive line. It's building slowly but surely. It's still stable. It's still good. But at the same time, I think if you get Fuaga, because I had them taking Fashanu in the first one, but this second time around, I think Fuaga's a pretty damn good prospect. And I think the Saints, because they need help on offensive line, just to give Derek Carr a little bit more time to cook in the pocket, I think Fuaga would definitely be my secondary pick there. Indianapolis Colts, because the Raiders ended up trading down on their pick, they are going to take Terrion Arnold from Alabama, another corner. Yeah, they're not shying away from corners at all. Now you get another really good man-to-man corner with Terrion Arnold. And at the same time, the Colts, they have a defensive schematic that they really want to be shut down and man-to-man for their corners and then play a little bit more of some cover ball between their safeties and maybe one floating corner in the backfield. But I think Terrion Arnold, he'll give you exactly the stops. And like I said, I think this is a really good secondary pick. If, in fact, the Raiders end up trading down and he's available, I think Arnold would be a pretty damn good pick. Trade alert from here, and the Chargers are doing it again, and this time they're trading the 23rd pick with the Seattle Seahawks because the Seahawks, they're not in desperation mode, but I think the Chargers were very smart to end up trading back up into those picks, and I think in the 16th pick, they take Brian Thomas II from LSU because not only are you getting a double whammy with Brock Bowers, but you're also getting a double whammy with Brian Thomas II because think of it, if the Chargers do sign Tyler Boyd, you're going to want to keep beefing up on offense and getting some offensive pieces. I think this is a pretty damn good pick because if he was still available, the Jags would have taken him. But Brian Thomas, I think he's pretty efficient. You get a secondary LSU receiver if Malik Neighbors, they do not take him at 5 this is a very good secondary pick for the Chargers. Jaguars have not changed their pick. I still take Keon Coleman for the receiving core because even though, yes, with Christian Kirk and now Gabe Davis, it's the same thing that I've been saying about with Rome Odunze. I think you definitely need an insurance package from there, and I think Keon Coleman is probably the best option as a slot receiver that the Jags could definitely use because they need to get offense going with some firepower. So if you get that stacked offense next to Houston, and who knows what happens now with the Titans and with the Colts, this is where the Jags basically want the last laugh in the division. Now, the traded pick that the Raiders have basically traded down with, instead of taking Terrion Arnold at 13, I have them taking Quinion Mitchell. They've been talking about this now for the last couple of days. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Quinion Mitchell is this year's Tariq Woolen, who I think is a ball hawk, somebody who basically makes you uncomfortable when it comes to man-to-man coverage, and at the same time, he acclimates to speed. He'll work a little bit more on his cover abilities, but I think you're going to get a lot with, Quinion Mitchell, and I think this is a good secondary pick for the Raiders if, in fact, they do trade down. I know I had the LA Rams in the last draft that I had them taking Byron Murphy. This time, I think they take Laiatula too, because ultimately, you're going to have a guy who's, I would say, is along the same caliber as far as physicality, elusiveness, like a Micah Parsons. And so the Rams will get their version of Micah Parsons in Laiatula too. I love the fact that he could basically roll out from the offensive line. He could bust through and basically kind of fool you in some areas, and that's what they needed to fill after they've lost Aaron Donald. They need somebody who's going to be a juice to the defense and really a juice to the organization and the team as a whole, because Sean McVay loves guys that are very hyped up, they're very energetic, and I think Laiatula too, he's kind of the perfect fit there. Pittsburgh Steelers are not changing from offensive tackle, but instead I have them taking Amarius Mims because at the same time, if you've got Russell Wilson and you know he cannot see from over that line, but you need to give him extra time to basically throw in the pocket, Amarius Mims is another one that the Georgia product, he basically gives you some very good and efficient coverage. And Georgia, when you look at Carson Beck, you look at their previous quarterback that they've had in the past, they had some very good pocket presence time. And so in the end, Russell Wilson, he's another one that you need to basically defend and to block. And I think at the same time, you need to make it efficient for Najee Harris or even for Jaylen Warren to basically run the football. So I think this is perfect for the Steelers. Now, the Miami Dolphins, because with the corner that's taken, I see them taking Kool-Aid McKinstry because having him and having Jalen Ramsey in the corners position, because after losing Xavier Howard and Javon Holland having a hell of a season that he did this past year, I think the Dolphins definitely make sense for Kool-Aid. I said it in the last one that I thought Philadelphia would be a pretty good wild card from there. But I think Miami, they don't panic. They take a corner, and I think Kool-Aid, he's available. You better bet that the Dolphins are going to end up taking him. As I've said before, I would be moving him up and into the draft. So I moved up Nate Wiggins upward, and I have him going to the Eagles. Now, Nate Wiggins is somebody that I think is almost like a C.J. Gardner-Johnson-esque type player, but at least that corner room is going to be stacked for the Eagles because they get CJ back. I don't think he'll be the same as he once was, but you're still going to get efficiency with him. And Darius Slay, I think this is also a very good kind of move-off package because depending if James Bradbury does not end up playing to the caliber that he once was, this is actually a pretty good replacement from here. Seattle Seahawks end up taking with the traded pick, and this might shock everybody, but I have the Seahawks taking Chop Robinson. Because in the end, if you've got a Chinowosu and you ended up losing Poona Ford, and you lost, one of their best defensive tackles, you go and you get another one. You go and get Chop Robinson. Now, as an edge rusher between him and Achinowosu, this is actually a pretty damn good fit, because what was the one thing Mike McDonald really, really liked? He loved the edge rushing presence that Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen was able to produce in Baltimore. Well, I think in this kind of setting for Seattle, you're going to do the same thing, and I think Chop Robinson kind of seems like an ideal fit. Do not be surprised if this is where Seattle goes with their pick. Now, of course, as I've got my man right down there watching this, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I had him in the last draft. I had him taking an offensive tackle. I have them taking it again, but this time it's not Tyler Guyton, it's J.C. Latham. I think Latham really does serve as you've got Tyler Smith on one side. You need to figure out the other side, because in the end, it's basically go out with a boom or nothing with Dak Prescott. And so the only way to do this is you've got to protect the line, and eventually they're going to have to go and get another receiver in the second round, which is kind of what they're looking for. But I think you got to solidify that line very quickly and very fast, because sometimes the longer you wait with offensive lines, like in this league, they don't last for very long. Okay, so in the next pick, I still have the Green Bay Packers solidifying their safety, and they still go and get Cooper DeJean. He's just an ideal, perfect fit. And at the same time, after losing a player like Xavier McKinney and a couple others, I think ultimately Cooper DeJean is going to serve as that kind of physicality safety, but somebody that I think the Packers would definitely love to have. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because not getting Chop Robinson like they did in the last draft, I have them taking Byron Murphy II, because in the end, they've lost a ton as far as their defensive presence, but I think you formulate from the line, you maybe go and get an edge rusher in the second round, but Byron Murphy, you are going to have him serve as a defensive tackle that's going to make it so uncomfortable for the offense from both running the football and at the same time going for passes. I think this is actually low-key an ideal fit if this really, really does happen for Tampa Bay. Now, the Arizona Cardinals on their 27th pick, because in the end, they still are going to take an offensive lineman, and now this time I have them taking Tyler Guyton. And I do think because you need to protect Kyler Murray at all costs, you gave him arguably the best receiver in his class in Marvin Harrison Jr. Now you make it up by basically getting an offensive lineman to help fit the bill. Buffalo Bills, I did have them taking Adonai Mitchell, and I honestly do think they might piss off the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they might actually go speed and take Xavier Worthy. Either one of these Texas receivers, they really are going to be very efficient. Now, the Buffalo Bills, I think this is kind of a payback thing for them, because their rivalry between them and the Chiefs is very, very strong. And you know what? They want to have with what the Chiefs had with Tyreek Hill, and I think this definitely works for Josh Allen, because throwing the deep ball, you're going to need somebody with great route running skills and some speed. Some speed to basically make those over-the-shoulder catches, and I think Xavier Worthy would actually be a pretty damn good pick. Now, the Detroit Lions, they lost out on their corner, but I do think they need to fix up that front line, and I have them taking Jerzon Newton from Illinois, because I never understood why Brad Holmes never pulled the trigger and basically go and get an edge rusher. Give me a DT. Give me something up there up on that front line, because it's not looking promising. But I think Jerzon Newton, with his body build and his elusiveness, I think the Illinois product, he could definitely serve up to be a really, really good pick in the end for the Detroit Lions, and give them exactly with what they were missing to give a little bit more time for Aiden Hutchinson to cook, and you gave him a secondary pressurizing opponent against the offense. Nothing's really changed at all for the Baltimore Ravens. I still have them taking an interior guard and taking Graham Barton. I do think that this is something that they needed to fix up for quite some time. Not a big-time desperate pick. I think this is ultimately trying to serve more protection for Lamar Jackson to run the football, and then at the same time, you're efficiently running the football at the end of the day. And like I said, San Francisco, I think, is probably going to like me with this one. I haven't changed the pick yet. I've got them still taking Troy Fautanu and to solidify that right side, because for the 49ers moving forward, Trent Williams, as you already know, an all-pro and a future Hall of Famer at the left tackle position. He's already shutting that down. The right side between the interior guard and the tackle was not good for the Niners, and that kind of accounted for a little bit of those pressures in the Super Bowl. So you go and get Troy Fautanu. You lock down the right side. Sean Feliciano, who you had on the tackle, basically trying to compete up for that position, you move him up to the right interior guard and give him a little bit more extra space. I think also because of the size of John Feliciano, he gives you a little bit more of that interior blockage, so that allows someone like Brock Purdy to have a little bit more time to throw. But then that also means that there's a little bit of another gap that Christian McCaffrey could run through when you're going through run plays. So I think you get Troy Fautanu, you move over John Feliciano onto the right interior side, and then I think that solidifies the line. My last pick, of course, in the second mock draft, the Kansas City Chiefs end up going with Adonai Mitchell, because in the end, if the Buffalo Bills end up taking Xavier Worthy, they're going to flip-flop, and they're going to take the other Texas product, Adonai Mitchell. And I think Mitchell, he runs really, really good routes, and he's got great hands. Not a lot of people really do talk about him as much, and they don't really kind of showcase him, but he was actually really, really good and accounted for Quinn Ewers' build at the quarterback position. So either one of those, Xavier Worthy or Adonai Mitchell, they're really, really good Texas products. They're very much going to make a lot of noise in this league. But I think for Kansas City and for the world champs, they go and get another receiver. I think this is actually a pretty solid receiver that you could build around in your franchise for the next 5 years. And with that, as we have done our second mock draft closer to draft night, my good friend, I've got a lot of explaining to do with the Dallas Cowboys, but he is by far the best one in the business and knows exactly what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys. So joining me, Doug Brooks. So I got to tell you, Doug, I mean, like I said, the first mock draft was very impressive. The second mock draft, I told a lot of people there was going to be tons of movement, and sure enough, there was. I mean, looking up in this list, I'll bring it back up again, but what did you think of this draft list, honestly?
Well, first of all, appreciate you having me here on your show. As always, you are incredibly knowledgeable, not only about your team, but obviously you know about the needs of other teams. That's what makes you so great. Always been impressed by you, so appreciate you having me on. It's pretty good, but the one thing that we all know about the draft is it's real simple. There's always going to be some surprises, and according to the surprises, some of those names are going to drop. I'm looking at there's still a lot of heat for some reason about JJ.
Mm-hmm.
And he could very well maybe even move up from what I'm hearing. The thing is that the steam has left Drake May. And I'm not hearing too much positive stuff. I think I forgot who the guy's name was. I forgot. Forgive me for not remembering him, but he said he wouldn't even, he's not going to do too well. They don't think he is. I think when you start talking about the quarterbacks and where they fall, some team is going to be very interested possibly to move up, and all that good talent that you have all so eloquently talked about is going to drop down, and it's going to make things very interesting because of that. But as far as coming down a lot there. And I guess I might as well just go with my team. I like what you said, but I got to tell you, I don't agree with that. And it's not because of what you said. We do need offensive line help. But the wild card of at least my team, the Cowboys, Jake, is that what are we ultimately going to do with Tyler Smith? Mm-hmm. If you leave him at guard, then we will need a left tackle. That's the big debate that's going on. If you move him to left tackle, are you now dependent on TJ Bass to take over the left guard position? Mm-hmm. And so that's I believe that question will be answered before the draft. We'll just find out according to the draft. I believe that we should go offensive line first round without a doubt. The only reason why I kind of debate what you said about the other side, what we have to remember is that they have paid Terrence Steele a lot of money, and he's coming off. Last year was his year that he played, the first year off of ACL. Well, we already know in football, when we start talking about coming off the ACL, you're back to probably your normal self in your second year coming back off. So before he got injured, he was almost on Pro Bowl level. So I think that they're going to run with Terrence Steele. And I love flex. But the thing about flex, it's kind of hard to go from right tackle to a left tackle, even if you're keeping Tyler Smith at left guard. It's just not smart. You just might as well draft a left tackle. So I think that offensive line, as you said, will be there. Another interesting thing, Snake, I don't mean to take up the time, but if that kid from Oregon is there, Johnson, the center, mm-hmm. it becomes extremely interesting, considering that we lost our starting center, and they say they might go with Brock Hoffman, but I would be happy with that pick because he is a dog, the kid from Oregon. So I love him. But you're right, offensive line. It's just Tyler Smith kind of holds the cards of how they're going to attack.
Yeah, and ultimately, because the thought process of it is that, you kind of go back to Dak Prescott's rookie year, right? And you think about, having Travis Frederick, you end up having, a really good solid line for that time. And at the same time, the run game was just so efficient. So I started thinking, well, you don't have Tony Pollard. You don't have Michael Gallup because at this point, Dak's price is going to start to end up going up from here on out. So the best thing you could possibly do if you're thinking about it, because whether Dak stays or he goes, I would love to at the very least get my line in order so that way it's a lot simpler, because I think Jake Ferguson's a very good pick. I thought he was a very good tight end that was very serviceable and was very much somebody that was efficient, because after losing Dalton Schultz, that was kind of the hard part that the Cowboys knew they needed to fill. So at that point, you got your line established, and who knows? You go and get the next runner. You maybe go and get the next receiver, whatever you need to, because as far as the time is basically ticking with Dak Prescott, whether he stays or he goes, I think at this point, if you're Stephen Jones, you got to be kind of thinking about the future from here if this is the point on.
Well, you're absolutely right. But the problem is that we lost so much depth. Mm-hmm. We have so many holes that if just about anywhere where you pick, mm-hmm. it's going to be a good pick for you because you almost need rotation. But we need day one starters. Yep. Probably within the first 2 to 3 rounds. No question about it. And I just really believe that I'm not going to say a safe pick, but the smart pick. And you're right. You need to do it whether it's for Dak Prescott, and keep in mind, if it's not Dak, a lot of people want Trey Lance to play anyway. Well, he signed to 2025. So you already got your next quarterback probably in the room already, and you definitely want to keep the line right for him if Dak is gone. So I just think that it's just a smart move to do that. But at the same time, you got to play the what-if game when we start talking about especially when you start talking in the 20s and down. What if your guy is not there? What if these prize offensive linemen? And then, Jake, you studied quite well. I try to do the best I can as well. But one thing I learned about my team, our draft grades is not the Dallas Cowboys draft grades.
Yeah.
What we say is a first round pick, they may say it's a second or third round pick. And that's where the drama really starts. But as I said before, and I hate to be repetitive, but I really do believe that at least in the first round, it will be an offensive lineman.
Yeah, because ultimately, whether it's Dak or it's not, or it could be Trey Lance, or it could be any other quarterback that could come in the building. Either way, you want to basically be prepared for the future because, again, if you're looking at a mulligan season from the Eagles, you're looking at a defense and, of course, a very efficient offense in Washington with Dan Campbell. And then the Giants, let's be honest, they go and get a playmaker. You're still going to have to figure out that quarterback position. Yeah. So time itself, isn't always of the essence. But if you use the time wisely, if you're Stephen Jones, hopefully it pans out on their side. So let's talk about that with Dak Prescott, because right now there's some noise now in the building because of the fact of it is Dak's price is going to start to go up, and it's now having to get guys like CeeDee Lamb and like Micah Parsons, which Micah Parsons always loves to be vocal on his podcast all the time. I like some of his takes, and I can definitely respect him protecting his quarterback. But at the same time, we just got to be honest here. The Cowboys, initially, when you get gutted by Dan Campbell in Washington with a lot of their defensive players, this defense is going to look very, very different. And now having Mike Zimmer there as a defensive coordinator, things are going to start to add up. How do you really kind of see this playing out with the Cowboys? Because to me, look, I'm very much crossing my fingers this season. Yeah, the Cowboys, I'm hoping it's not a CeeDee Lamb injury away from where this team regresses and then you really have to start thinking about it. I'm hoping he stays healthy all the year. But how do you kind of see this panning out?
I don't see a 12-win season again for the third year in a row. I don't see that. However, a Dak Prescott-led teams always seems, at least in the last 4 to 5 years, always seem to get double-digit wins one way or the other. Now, of course, the talent level helps out when you have an Amari Cooper, when you have a healthy Michael Gallup, when you had a rookie CeeDee Lamb. Of course, you're going to do well. When you had somewhat of a younger Ezekiel Elliott who still had some gas in the tank. And then, of course, you had an all-pro line. Anytime you have 2 or 3 all-pros on your line, you're supposed to be pretty good. So that's not the case. However, now you look at today, well, you lost 2 of your starting offensive linemen. Tyler Biadasz is gone. Tyron Smith is gone. You got to fill those holes. And they're not. And when you start talking about somebody like Tyron Smith, we're talking about a walking Hall of Famer. It's hard to replace that. I don't care how old he is. Last time I checked, he was voted second team All-Pro last year. So, it's hard to make up for that. Tyler Biadasz was a Pro Bowl center 2 years ago. So he's not trash. You're gonna have to fill in those holes. Now, you really have no running back room.
Yep.
Rico Dowell just got signed. You got Deuce Vaughn. The guy that hardly even dressed. You got Malik Davis. You got Hunter Lemke. You got Malik Davis. So when I just gave you those names, that don't scare anybody. Yeah. So I'm saying, obviously we're going to need to get a back in the draft, but if you get that, guess what? They're a rookie. So, can you really bank on, the running game? Okay, you go to receivers. Now, I don't mean to walk it down, but receivers, you really only got one threat, CD, and then your tight end is your next best threat. And Jake, Brandon Cooks, he came on late. So, again, might be a receiver that you got, but again, that's a rookie. So I don't know how you can do that. Now, defense, we lost all our depth on defensive line, defensive tackle. All the depth is gone. And what was the Achilles heel for my team? We couldn't stop the run. Yep. So, now you got to build from scratch up. We haven't signed any free agents. I'm quite sure that's going to happen, obviously, since every team has to have 90 players in the preseason. So I believe we're going to go shopping in just a few more weeks once the draft is over with. But are those players, are you going to say like, okay, we got a pretty good running defense? I don't know that yet. So we got a lot of holes, Jake, that you can point at. You said defense. Obviously, I think the only thing that we're good at, that I'm stable on, is our secondary. I got 2 all-pro cornerbacks, Diggs, Bland. I got Donovan Wilson. I still got Curse. I still got Malik Hooker. We're solid there. Michael Parsons is where are you going to play him? I know Zimmer comes from a 4-3, but are you going to make him exclusively, linebacker? And then, of course, put him down on the line every now and then. But are you going to put him back at linebacker? Okay, if you put him back at linebacker, now here comes, who's your defensive end? Tank Lawrence is there. Okay, now how much do you trust Sam Williams, second-round pick from last year, who's now probably going to be your starting DN? How much do you trust him? So there's it's too many questions on defense to answer your question. I'm sorry, I took the long way around. When you got as many questions as that, you can't really feel too solid on your predictions or something like that. We're not as good defensively now as we were at the end of the year. Dan Quinn took everybody from us. They're over there in Washington now, just about. Took all the depth away. So it remained to be seen. I can't really base anything on the Cowboys until week 1, to be honest with you. So
and that's definitely something to really outlook up on there. But at least I know I've got proof up on it. There's a Cowboys fan that's also looking for all the answers that the Cowboys are trying to basically answer up to all these questions. And so, it will be interesting, but I do really Deron Bland was a very damn good secondary. And at the time when Trayvon Diggs went down, somebody had to step up, and I think Bland did the right thing. Now, having both of them out on the same field will be a little bit of a different story. Now, the Cowboys know they're coming into an expectation where in the NFC East, and I've been, talking about this a lot, but the fact that the Eagles are basically throwing in a mulligan year with now having Kellen Moore and now having Vic Fangio as their new coordinators, Dan Quinn now goes to Washington. I was saying this in my little skit. I don't think Dallas is honestly going to end up liking that, the fact that they're going to have to face Kellen Moore and they're going to have to face Dan Quinn twice a year. In these kinds of games to really kind of show out for, because we know punching your ticket in the playoffs is the most important factor. But at the same time, if you're getting a division that's only getting tougher, and for some teams they're trying to rebound back, that's going to be a little bit harder to end up answering to, right?
No question. And when you say Kellen, the only thing that I would say about both of them is that we know them. That's the only thing I can say about Moore and Dan Quinn. However, when you talk about it, I just go through all of them. I'm going to give a little bit more credit to the Giants than what you did. I know the quarterback issue is Daniel Jones. I get it. But they did get very good on defense.
Yeah.
They did. They went and got some guys. And their defense was already pretty decent as it was. They got some guys. They're going to have an excellent pass rush this year. But the two teams that obviously you're going to look out for, because the same way I just said, we know Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, they know us too. Mm-hmm. And when we start talking about Washington scares me. And the reason why I'm saying that within the division, I'm not saying Super Bowl or nothing like that.
Yeah.
But if they get Jalen Daniels, that is going to be a problem only because of what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
You already got Brian Robinson there. You still got I got my
Terry McLaurin. Yep.
You still got McLaurin. You still got a good tight end. You got a pretty good offensive line. Good defense. Now you add that element of a quarterback that can get out the pocket. He's a playmaker, dynamic player. You put him back there. The Washington Commanders just got a little bit better. So I'm already respecting him. Then you got all this veteran leadership that done came over. they're gonna be pretty good. I ain't saying they're gonna win the division or nothing. Philly is going to be real tough this year, and I'm going online and saying that. Now, if Saquon, his history is he just can't stay healthy, but if he does, look out. It's scary to have Jalen Hurts and then Saquon playing, the quick read game. That's going to be hard to stop. But especially when both of them are such a serious threat to run the football. And of course, you still got AJ and Devontae, and then a healthy Dallas Goedert. Let's not forget about that. Now they did lose Kelsey, the center. That's a loss. They did lose Fletcher Cox. I believe he retired. And I believe they lost Graham. So those are two, stable, solid people. But they're loaded and they're going after it. So I don't right now, as presently constructed, we don't look good even in the division race as of right now.
Right.
Check me out at week 1 check me out when the final cut is done in week 4 of the preseason. And then I'll be able to say, okay, if this is what we're working with, let me go and make my prediction of how we looking. But right now, we don't look too good. We don't have no depth anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you, I'm always tuning into your show. And usually I'm like, when he gets prepared by week 1, as yours truly, whenever I'm doing, Chargers content on the side, I'm going to be prepared just as much as you will be in week 1. So, we can honestly say, well, maybe to ask you, who kind of has more of the pressure on their shoulders this upcoming season? Because Dak Prescott being one of them, one, he's got a great football IQ. There's no denying it. The guy can throw. He throws smartly, and he's at the same time, when he gets that football rolling and moves the chains, there's no stopping the Cowboys' arsenal. That's what we learned last year. So is there more pressure on him? Or is there pressure on Mike McCarthy? Because already now, against Green Bay twice with 2 quarterbacks, he's 0-2 against both. And I think ultimately, if you're the Cowboys and if you are really riding this train with Mike McCarthy, you got to clean the skeletons out of the closet here, because in the end, it ain't even just, division rival matchups you got to worry about. But even as you look at, because I think we're going to go through a new wave of really good players coming into the NFL in this draft, and more particularly quarterbacks, wide receivers, and I think offensive tackles. And this is exactly what the NFC needs, because the AFC expectations totally different. They got high caliber quarterbacks. But who do you think has more of the pressure this upcoming season? Is it Dak, or is it maybe potentially McCarthy?
Well, put it this way, and it's different. If Dak has a bad year, guess what happens next year?
Yep.
Whether he's with Dallas or somewhere else, he gets to play football. Yep. He won't be out of football. He'll get another job. Mm-hmm. Mike McCarthy loses, and he loses his job. Is he gonna get another head coaching job somewhere? It took him this long to get the Dallas Cowboy job. I believe, but see, that answer is kind of laid up with the Jones family. Because see, if I'm a lame duck coach and I'm looking at what's going on this offseason so far for the Cowboys, you almost chopping my head off before we even snapped the first down. You done took all my players away. You ain't tried to sign nobody. You didn't go after nobody in free agency. You leave me with no depth. I want to run the football, but I have no running back worth talking about. You really haven't. You've taken away all my depth on defense. So are you really? What am I supposed to do with this roster? Yeah. And everybody's on a one year deal. So you just hired Mike Zimmer, but he's on a 1 year deal. Mm-hmm. And if you bring in another coach, Mike Zimmer's not going to be your defensive coordinator.
Right.
So really, I believe the pressure is really, Mike McCarthy. I don't think he's going to make it. But then it's really on the Jones, because who you gonna bring to Dallas when you gonna have to hire a whole new staff, position coaches, coordinators, head coach, which means whoever the quarterback is gonna have to learn a whole new system. I mean, you really want to start this over again? Because that's exactly what is going to happen. But to answer your question, and I ain't mean to be long-winded again, it's Mike McCarthy who's going to have to make a way. It looked like going to have to make a way out of no way. That's what it's starting to look like, because Dak Prescott will have a job next year, whether it's with the Cowboys or whoever else is going to be. He'll get another contract.
Yeah, I think you're on to something with it, though. I mean, yeah, Dak Prescott, because ultimately, Dak, with the amount of efficiency that he's basically had over the years that he's played in the NFL, he'll have a job somewhere. And
put it this way, Jake. If Dak Prescott, if he wins double digits, his value just went up again.
Yeah,
I mean, depending on that. And check this out: if the Cowboys let him walk, he will be the number one quarterback in free agency. He will be the best quarterback off any quarterback coming out the draft. There will be teams, I ain't going to say how many, but I'll throw up one scenario for you. I'll throw out maybe two. Seattle, let's throw that out. You don't think that they would love to have Dak there instead of Geno? All right, that's one. How about this one? Let's just say, look at what the New York Jets have done. Okay. Ready-made team. You got Aaron Rodgers there, who probably will be his last year this year. You don't think that the Jets would possibly look at Dak Prescott to step right in with a good running back and Bryce Hall? I believe I pronounced him right.
Yeah, Breece Hall. Yep.
Breece Hall. You got the number one. You got a good number one wide receiver there. You got a good tight end. You got an excellent defensive coach in Robert Saleh, and the defense is always there. You don't think that they wouldn't go after Dak Prescott and pay him accordingly? He'll have a job. He will have a job. I mean, it's just a matter of where it will be. So he'll be fine. But Mike McCarthy, I don't know if he'll get another job again.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, I mean, when you think of Mike McCarthy, I mean, you think about, afterwards, like what happened with Belichick. Belichick was too one-dimensional. He's not somebody that was basically able to adjust to this generation's, new NFL. And so that's where it was kind of just the root of his downfall. And so when you look at McCarthy with his so-called analytics and all the rest of it, I mean, come on. If we were going to be talking about analytics, we wouldn't be struggling this much to really, figure this out. And so, I think in the end, if you are the Cowboys, the Jones, I hate to say this, but when you have a meddling owner like Jerry Jones, it's hard enough to basically try to get everything in line, get it structurized, make sure it's consistent. Because it's like you got Jerry on the television almost every day, and he's speaking for the Cowboys rather than just you hear it from McCarthy every day. That was kind of the thing that would not roll with Jimmy Johnson, that would not roll with Bill Parcells. And even when people were saying, oh, you could see, Belichick go to the Cowboys. Are you kidding me? That would not roll well. Like,
Well, I know you don't cover the Cowboys, Jake. I know you talk about them, but I know you don't cover them like I do.
Mm-hmm.
But let me throw this in for you listeners or whoever may be watching this replay. What the Cowboys have done is try to don't pay attention to the words.
Right.
Jerry Jones is not watching no film. He's not scouting players. That's not his job. That's Will McClay and his scouting department. That's what they do. Jerry pay attention to their actions, not the words. Their actions are showing right now that they're in a rebuild. But the media and people, if you're not covering them, they're still talking playoffs, Super Bowl. I've been saying on my show, the Cowboys' actions are showing me they are in a rebuild. And all you got to do is look. They already knew what they could do for the salary cap. Extend that, extend CD. That's restructure Diggs contract, restructure Terrence Steele contract. They have done absolutely nothing. So what does that tell me? Now you get this talk about, well, we're going to let Dak walk. Now all of a sudden, Michael Parsons, a little stuff, they don't want to pay him all that. Now you're wondering, are they going to extend CD? Well, here's what I'm saying. Now I heard some crazy stuff about Dak Prescott getting traded for Derek Carr and he going to the Raiders or something like that for picks. You see what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is you do all of this stuff if you are in a rebuild. If your mind is made up that you're not going to pay these guys, then you're rebuilding because they're going to walk anyway. It's just going to happen like that. So once you look at it from a rebuild perspective, some of this stuff is starting to make sense, what they're doing. But if you're looking at it from, well, we won 12 games last year, and all we need is just a couple things, and we can go back and really challenge for NFC and all that, their actions are not showing that. Jerry will send you hope and try to keep everybody engaged and get ESPN talking. But his actions are showing that as of right now, we're looking like we're in a rebuild.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me.
Man, look at that. Every time when we come up onto the show, man, you've got the big time take. You got the big time explanation for it. And I'm there for it. I love it, man. And so, I mean, yeah, it's big because in the end, I wish that I was able to be in that same front office as a lot of the executives, as a lot of, the front office people in many of the other organizations, even including the Cowboys, to get a clearer sense. Yeah. But the only thing I could very much do is just perspect, analyze, evaluate, and then come up with the best balanced, opinion possible that, as I've always said, I always hope many of them prove me wrong because in the end, I'm looking at the reality, and I think you're all right. I think they definitely are in this rebuild mode because you don't just not sign anybody and only just Eric Kendricks and for nothing unless you're doing this for a reason.
When you draft your players, you want them to be the best that they can be.
Yes.
The Dallas Cowboys are showing me by their actions that the ones that have elevated themselves at least to all-pro level or whatever, they are being punished for being good. That's my super take because you're not trying to pay anybody. The Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, are selling that they want too much money. They want you to be good. They just don't want you to be that good.
Right.
Dak Prescott, second team All-Pro, second runner-up for MVP award. CeeDee Lamb is waiting on Justin Jefferson to get paid first, just like Justin Jefferson is waiting for CD to get paid. We're talking $30 million wide receiver now. That's that'll be behind Tyreek Hill, of course. That'll be top 2 wide receiver salary. Michael Parsons is going to be the highest paid defensive player in the history of the NFL. That's coming up. So Jerry Jones does not want to pay possibly Dak Prescott $60 million a year.
No.
He does not want to pay CeeDee Lamb $30 million a year. He had problems just a couple years ago paying Amari Cooper $20. He cut him. He traded him for $20. He didn't want it. Now you're talking about Parsons, of course, becoming the highest paid. Jerry has never had this type of problem before. He's had superstar players, but he ain't never had guys who are at the top of their position. There ain't nowhere in the world he want to pay $3 million, the top salary in their position. There's just no way. He's never had it before. And right now what he's showing me is he forget about signing one of them, although I really do believe CD is going to get signed. I believe Michael Parsons is going to get signed. I don't feel the same way about Dak Prescott. But as of now, nobody has been extended.
Yeah.
That's not the way other teams operate. You see Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City say, man, we ain't going to even play with this. We're going to sign you to 10 years.
Yep.
Joe Burrow, we're going to go and sign you to heaven. Justin Herbert, we're going to go ahead and sign you. We're not going to even play. Josh Allen, we're not going to even play around. We want y'all.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that same energy when it comes to Dak Prescott at all. He's played on 2 franchise tags. He's taking the Kirk Cousins route. whenever you let your quarterback play on a franchise tag, you're really not sure about him. You don't want him and to play on 2 franchise tags. That's really all I need to know. I know that they don't want to pay him $60 million. Some will say, and I don't blame them, and some will say, well, who says he got to be 60? Just pay him above maybe Justin Herbert. What's your quarterback getting, 52?
52 and a half, yep.
Okay, just give Jack 53. I mean, just give him 53 and we good. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's what there's that. But see, nobody wants to give that. They don't want to do it. So I believe that's why I'm saying I'm not paying attention to the words when they say, hey, man, Dak Prescott he's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. Show him. You ain't showed him nothing. You let him pay on 2 franchise tags. This is the Dallas Cowboys that I know.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that you end up saying that because I always kept hearing the narrative that, Dak Prescott is obviously Kirk Cousins, but with a star on the brand. And that's literally what is happening from here on out. But yeah, it really is. It really is quite a strange and interesting scenario for the Cowboys moving forward. But again, I think, at the end of the day, you just really have to face up to reality at this point, because when you're picturing all of this stuff, it's just not really a good look for the fan base itself. And then let alone, the football fans who obviously know that the big brand like the Cowboys, this starts happening. I mean, if the Cowboys themselves go on television tomorrow and they basically said, oh, by the way, this is a rebuild. You know how many people are going to freak out?
They're going to freak out.
You never hear a big brand say to themselves it's a rebuild.
They will never say it. But again, as I said before, pay attention to their actions. Their actions as of today are showing me, based off the comparison of what they used to do, and I'm not talking about 10 years ago, I'm talking about just last year, is showing me something completely different. And in fairness to Jerry and Stephen Jones, I'll give you another hot little take real quick.
All right.
If you don't believe in it and you ran your race for these 8 years with Dak Prescott and Tyron Smith is now gone, the window is closing. If you don't think this team can get it done, then guess what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to bust it up.
Yep.
And maybe that's what they've sat at a round table and said, hey, maybe Dak Prescott, maybe he's not the guy that we think they can get us over the Super Bowl, and we're not going to waste another 3-4 years and paying him $60 million a year trying to figure out if he's the guy. By now, he would have shown us if this is the guy. And as much as I love Dak, and much as some fans love Dak, here's the bottom line. So I've been trying to tell everybody, Jake, you got to go ahead and give the whole story when it comes to Dak. You just can't pick out the narrative that you want to fit, that fits you. So yes, he's 2-5 in the playoffs, 2-7, whatever he is, 2-5. But the whole other side of the story is he was second in MVP voting. He led the league in touchdowns last year. You got to assess the quarterback with the whole story. You just can't say, well, he can't get it done in big games. You got to do the whole thing. If you feel like this guy has reached his ceiling, then you don't pay him. I mean, it's just that simple. And their fairness to Jerry and Steven, if that's what they feel, he ain't going to get no contract. They just going to play it out this year. That's what I'm looking at. And if I'm CeeDee Lamb, I don't mean to keep going, why would I sign an extension when I don't know who my quarterback going to be?
That's very true too. Mm-hmm.
I don't like Trey Lance. I mean, I'm not talking about me. CeeDee Lamb may not like Trey Lance. Yeah. Why would I sign somewhere? You need to just let me walk and let me go to the place where I can keep up these all-pro years. I don't want to have to struggle like Devontae Adams did this year. Mm-hmm. Still great, but he wasn't all-pro this year. Man, been all-pro every year, the last 6, 7, 8 years. Now, all of a sudden, can't find him. See what I'm saying? So, a lot of decisions got to be made. And as much as Michael Parsons, for instance, is you don't like, all of a sudden they say he's growing weary. The Cowboys are growing weary of Michael Parsons. Why? Because he talked. What about his production on the field? He's been an all-pro his whole career. Yeah. Rookie year, first year, third year. but you don't want to pay him the money. If I'm Michael Parsons, I'm saying like, well, we ain't gonna win no Super Bowl anyway. Let me take my talents to a team that I know I got a chance to win. So there's a lot of stuff going on, Jake, in Dallas, Texas. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Oh, man. It's like they said, man, everything that's big up in Texas right now, we've got bigger issues up in Dallas, and this is where they really have to solve it up into this draft. Doug, appreciate you jumping on by, man. You literally take my breath away, and you got me off my rocker up on here when it came to the reality of the Dallas Cowboys, and I thank God we've got the clip for it because many people, and I'm going to be sending this to multiple Cowboy friends of mine that I know, I'm like, you need to listen to this. This is a real thing. It's like when we talk about politicians, when we got PSAs, you're going to need to listen to this because this is real stuff we're talking about here.
Yeah, it is real stuff. And like I said, you got to come down out of the cloud. Yep. You got to sooner or later look at things and say, okay, it is what it is. And right now, if you're looking at it from a hopeful lens or if you're being optimistic, then you still going to have this dreamland or whatever. But there are some pessimistic, real Cowboy fans that say, this ain't looking good. And I'm one of those that say, no, you can't fool me. I know how you operate. I've seen how you operate over the last 5 years. What you're doing now, this is not what y'all do. So has a decision been made through y'all internally saying, hey, we reached our ceiling. Zach Martin is getting older, a little longer in the tooth. He ain't got too many more good years left, even though he's first team All-Pro. Is he, Tyron Smith is already gone. We have no running backs. We got really one true wide receiver, and as you just said earlier, Jake, one injury away. If he goes down, who Dak throwing to? Yep. Good Lord, who? I mean, come on. So I'm saying, like, once you look at it from a realistic perspective, what else can you say? But we might be in a little trouble here. We might really be in a little trouble here, and it might just be the way that they set it up. Mm-hmm. That's another reality that you got to say. Like, you ain't saying it, and you know what you said, but really behind closed doors, have you said this is a mulligan year? We're going to get rid of McCarthy. We know he ain't going to win the Super Bowl. Let's take away all the stuff away. Let's just have him do a real good coaching job. We got a veteran coordinator in Mike Zimmer. He'll do a decent job. But are we just going to wipe this slate clean next year? Because we're not going to hire McCarthy next year. Yep. Dak, we're not going to pay him $60. Okay, CD, he's on the contract, but no. Yeah, we going to roll with Trey Lance with this one next year? Is there a quarterback in the draft that wants to do it? And then one more thing, Jake. How about this one? See, you got me flowing now. And I guess I'm setting up my own show. What free agent, considering that they're looking at how the Dallas Cowboys are treating their marquee players, what outside free agents would want to come here to Dallas, seeing how they're getting treated? So I'm saying, you're really gonna have to get lucky in the draft and have these guys for 5-year contract and hope you hit in the draft, because there ain't no free agents coming here. Ain't no free agents coming to Dallas. They see how you treating that. They see how you doing CD. They see how you doing. They saw how you did Dez Bryant. They saw how you did Ezekiel Elliott. They saw all this. So they saw how you did Cole Beasley. They saw all of this. They saw how you let DeMarcus Ware go. They saw this. I mean, the list go on and on. Yep. So I'm saying, like, what free agents really want to come to Dallas? The guys want to win rings now. The guys want to win rings. They want to go play with Mahomes. They want to go play with Lamar, even though Lamar ain't really won that. There are teams that would really want to go play with Josh Allen before they would want to come play with Dak Prescott. Seriously. Yeah. Because you got a chance, a real chance to win. This is the reality and some Cowboy fans looking at me right now want to just say, man, take him off your show, man. We don't want to hear that. You got to hear it because it's the truth. That's all I got to say.
And that's what we love about this show, right? We got to have these conversations because you got to get to the bottom line. You got to get to the truth of a lot of things. That's what ultimately what makes the show great. Big time show, Doug Brooks. Appreciate you jumping on by, man. Enjoying the rest of the week, man. Like I said, this is at least my Friday from here. I'm off the rest of the week. I've got a concert to go into, and I'm rather enjoy my life at a concert than to be one of those obnoxious drunk guys yelling at television because we're only 12 games into Major League Baseball. So
exactly. Got a long way to go. With that.
Exactly right, man. Doug, appreciate you coming on by. Take care of yourself, and we'll see what happens with those Cowboys come week one.
Sir. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Absolutely. Yep, there you go, guys. These are the conversations you ultimately got to have, and you got to have them quick. All right, I got to shut it down. This is, like I said, this is my Friday. I'm out the rest of the week. And going to be enjoying some really good music, going to be enjoying some great times. Appreciate everybody for jumping up on here onto the Snake Sports Talk Show. Boy, you got to love big-time takes like this. Doug Brooks, he was coming in with some serious fire out of the Dallas Cowboys. Appreciated him jumping up on here. Show sponsored by BetUS and SeatGeek. Don't lose your seat with SeatGeek. As you know, going to my concert, I got the best seats available at the most affordable price when you use Snake Sports as your promo code for $20 off of your ticket, and BetUS, where the game begins, where you got multiple different lines happening right now on a daily. I'm going to have my daily snake bite picks, so you don't want to end up missing that on BetUS.com. Appreciate you guys for jumping on by. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Snake Sports Talk Show. Here you guys.